Hi, and thank you all for tuning into our virtual talk. I want to tell you about law of brevity, a linguistic law from 1945, and how it can be relevant to the evolution of communication in nature.
So consider the words gymnasium, gasoline, memorandum, photography, public house, television. Now, how would you use them in a sentence? Probably something like, on my way to the gym, I stopped for gas and seen a memo that the local pub is having an evening screening of vintage photos on a big screen TV. So what happened? We commonly use shortened versions of words, often to an extent that the original longer version is getting slightly forgotten. I mean, how quickly can you recall what would be the full word for facts?
Word shortening is common as they become frequently used in spoken language. In fact, if we examine our whole vocabulary, we'll realize that the short words are the ones that we use most frequently, while the longer ones are used rarely. This phenomenon is called law of brevity, and it is one of Zipf's linguistic principles. George Kingsley Zipf was an American linguist who studied the statistical properties of language. He popularized this linguistic universal and explained it by the principle of least effort. Shortening frequently used words is more efficient in terms of information coding. It allows to conserve time, minimizes mistakes, and overall optimizes the communication. The principle makes sense not only in context of spoken language, but is relevant to any communication system, artificial or natural, regardless of the medium of information transfer. Few attempts have been made to test whether Zipf laws can be relevant to animal communication as well. And in fact, there are some supporting evidence from different communication modalities. For example, calls for mouse and macaques and gestural signals of chimpanzees both follow Zipf laws. Interestingly, behaviors not directly related to communication can also sometimes be described by Zipfian distribution. Analysis of dolphin surface movement patterns demonstrate that more frequently performed behaviors are shorter.
However, there is also some contradicting evidence demonstrating that Zipf laws are not universal for animal communication as they are across human languages. Some of the tested species show no fit to the proposed inverse relationship between frequency of use and the duration of transmitted signals. These include the common marmoset, the golden-backed uakari, and more recently, gibbons. This is quite surprising given the underlying logic of efficiency and economy of the brevity law. The idea that biological systems are evolutionarily optimized for least effort is easily accepted. So, what pressures could prevent some communication systems from reaching this presumably optimal state? One of the previously suggested reasons is transmission distance. Long-range transmission is benefited by longer signal duration. This can lower the chances of jamming and informational decay. So there might be a balancing pressure preventing the shortening of a signal below a certain threshold. Another factor that could affect the extent of the signaling system optimization is the specific social environment of the animal. Group living species frequently communicate with their conspecifics, and their signaling system might have been under strong selection pressure for optimizing the informational encoding. On the other hand, in solitary or generally less social animals, this pressure might have been weaker as their less intensive communication infers lower costs despite being sub-optimized in terms of signal duration, signal usage relationship.
To explore this direction, we looked at the vocal repertoire of rock hyraxes. These social herbivores offer an interesting system for studying communication and social behavior. They live in groups of up to 20 individuals, mostly occupying rocky cliffs and kopjes in Africa and Arabian Peninsula. Rock hyrax groups mainly consist of adult resident male, up to 20 females with juveniles and pups. While adult females usually stay in their natal groups, Adult males live around the age of 3 and spend most of their lives satelliting social groups without maintaining any stable ties with conspecifics. Both hyrax males and females are very vocal. Between the sexes, their repertoire consists of 14 different call types, but while females and resident males are frequently interacting and communicating with their group mates, bachelor male vocal signaling is mostly limited to long-range advertisement and aggressive interactions with competing bachelors. We thought that rock hyraxes might show differences in their adherence to the law of brevity. Social females, frequently communicating over short distances with their group mates, were expected to show a fit to the inverse signal duration, signal usage relationship. Bachelor males, on the other hand, mostly produce long-range signals, so they were likely to be more constrained by the requirements for long-range transmission rather by the frequency of signal usage. To test those predictions, we needed to have a representative sample of repertoire usage of both males and female hyraxes. To achieve this, we have fitted individual animals with miniature audio recorders mounted on a lightweight collar. The recorder collected all animal vocalizations emitted over a period of up to 1 week. Afterwards, the animals were recaptured and the collars were retrieved. So in total, we deployed 19 collars. We recorded 10 bachelor males and 9 social females, all in their natural environment. We approximately collected 150,000 calls and measured amplitude and duration of each one of those. All of the calls were identified and assigned to one of the 14 call types produced by rock hyraxes. For each call type, we calculated its frequency of use, the number of times a call type appeared out of the total number of calls produced by that specific individual.
The differences between males and females are evident already at the repertoire level. Social females use 12 call types versus only 8 produced by males. Females also use more affiliative call types in comparison to males. When addressing the question of the call duration and usage relationship, hyraxes showed no clear fit to the pattern predicted by the law of brevity. In contrast to our prediction, females showed the opposite trend, with longer calls being more frequently used, while male repertoire did follow the brevity relationship. As the next step, we performed a similar analysis, but instead of focusing at the duration of the call, we focused on the amplitude as another potential factor that can determine vocal effort of call production. Amplitude results were again inconsistent between the sexes, as females produce soft calls frequently and loud calls rarely, while males showed no relationship between call amplitude and usage. Ferreri-Cancho and Hernandez-Fernandez suggested that long and short-range calls might be subjected to contrasting selection pressures, and thus mixing the two categories together might mask the specific optimization patterns of the repertoire. To address this issue, we repeated the whole analysis again, but used only partial short-range repertoires. For females, we omitted the long-range warning calls, and for males, their loud advertisement songs. When looking at call duration usage relationship, females retained the positive relationship, and males showed no significant usage patterns. However, when focusing on call amplitude, both males and females follow brevity predicted patterns of soft calls being most frequently used. So the law of brevity and other zip rules are providing a statistically optimal setup for a communication system. Our results demonstrate that the specific real-life optimization of an animal signaling system depends on additional factors, such as the intended transmission distance and perhaps sexual selection-related pressures. When the classic brevity relationship of duration versus usage is tested, the hierarchies seem not to follow this pattern consistently. This suggests that call duration is not the primary effort determining factor. Amplitude, on the other hand, is following the brevity principle more consistently, and female repertoire shows this fit even after omission of long-range calls. Male repertoire is likely a special case. Their short-range communication is limited, and the repertoire is heavily dominated by loud advertisement songs. As their function requires loud, long-range transmission, optimization on the amplitude would be counterproductive. When songs are omitted from the analysis, the rest of the calls do follow the amplitude-usage relationship similarly to the female repertoire. But when the songs are considered, the classic duration-usage relationship appears. This transition might actually be revealing the relative cost of the two parameters in determining call production effort. The amplitude could be the costlier one and is under strongest optimization pressure, as evident from female and male short-range repertoires. Under a contrasting pressure for long-range transmission, optimization on amplitude is limited by the call function, so the optimization might operate on the signal duration instead, as we see in the full repertoire of Hyrax males.
So how all of this can be related to human languages, which are almost universally optimized for signal duration, the length of the words? Isn't amplitude playing any role in our case? Maybe not. Perhaps human languages, in their more advanced forms, are intended to function up close and personal. Traditional cultures adopted different solutions for long-range signaling, drumming, smoke signals, yodeling, etc. Those could have made amplitude irrelevant as an optimization parameter because loud signals were just not frequent enough to have any significant cost on the callers. So it is interesting to follow up on this direction and to test whether the shift between optimization on signal duration and signal amplitude in different animal systems is actually consistent with their typical communication range.